Welcome to the State of TV, a masterclass on an industry in transition. I'm Craig Anton, a SCAD professor of performing arts specializing in acting for the camera. To all my students out there and to all of you watching, get those notebooks ready because the expert opinions begin right now.
It's great to be here at SCAD. This will be my 10th time, and this may be the most powerful panel that I've had in those 10 years. I'm really pleased to welcome Melissa Blum, who is the owner and founder of MT Deco Agency, the social media specialist. Sean Gupta, who is a senior VP of strategy for streaming at Paramount, a new company name. Stephen Battaglio, TV media writer from the Los Angeles Times. Jon Spaet, the senior vice president of sales and development for Sinclair. And Vince Manze, who is the president and founder of Invinceable Media, and who was renowned for having been involved in the must-see TV era of NBC, and most recently did the launch of the Discovery Plus channel. I want to start with you, Stephen, to give us an overview of what you see from your position as a writer and an observer of the media. What's happening in television today? What is the big thing on your radar?
I'll give you a story of something that I covered last year. As you recall, Oprah Winfrey had a very big newsmaking interview with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle that aired live on CBS. Obviously, a lot of interest in it, and as it began, after it began, there was a I would say a minor panic on social media, because a lot of young people were interested in this program, and they didn't know how to find it. How can I watch it? Where is it? Where do I get this? In fact, the communications executive at CBS News told me that she received a couple of inquiries from reporters who cover the media, wanted to know where do I find this program? And in fact, now you see, and to me, that was, I mean, obviously this change has been going on, what happened a while ago, but I think it tells you how we have gone through a generational transformation in how people consume media. A large percentage of people under 40 just don't own televisions now. They do not. The conventional linear way of watching is eroding quickly, and they've got a tremendous amount of choice. So to that, and I think that also just sort of outlines the struggle that every legacy media company has as they try to transition to this new way of viewing, or this relatively new way of viewing. And that is, how do I keep investing in my streaming service, making it potent enough to be a compelling choice for consumers, and can I grow it fast enough to offset the decline in traditional viewing? You'll see that in every analyst report about every media company out there. That is the struggle, is that, I want to adapt to the new, but there's still a lot of money on the table for the traditional. And it's a race to grow one while sustaining the other, even though the decline is inevitable.
So you brought up something that actually is forcing me to change my strategy about this panel. I was going to go to Sean immediately, but no, I'm going to go to Vince, and I'll tell you why I'm going to go to Vince, because in my mind, the key to the success of streaming, because there's so much content out there and there's so many different distributors out there, and so much to see and so many different ways to see it. That means, is it binged or is it weekly, whatever, that I thought that the most important thing was going to be the way that it was discovered. So is it going to be some kind of a way that you can voice actuate discovery something by just asking a keyword? I thought that was the key. But it just from what you just said and from what I saw just yesterday, other people were complaining about not being able to find things in the Olympics on Peacock, for example. And that seemed to me to be, wow, there's an issue going on now between how we used to promote things in the past and how things are promoted today in the stream. Vince, what's your opinion of that, and what are you seeing?
Well, I felt the same way about this Olympics. I just felt that there was a certain lack of knowledge as to where to find it, who are they, identification, and people watch for people. They like to root for heroes, and it is a nationalistic kind of event. I didn't feel that they marketed, first of all, any rooting interest for me. I didn't know who was who or what. And then, but part of it was also the production, and also the environment was just not conducive. But yeah, it was a mess. And then you add in Peacock, and you have no idea where to go for any specific event. So I thought it was a kind of a miss there. I didn't think that marketing was all the problem, being down 40% this year. I just
more,
thought
or more.
It could have helped. It could have helped.
So you were clearly one of the powerhouses and the founders of one of the most powerful marketing groups in television at NBC, at a time when a rating was, you could get a 30 rating, you could get an 18 share, and if you take a look at numbers now, unless you're the Super Bowl, you're not getting anywhere near those kinds of numbers. That's not the issue or the question. The issue and the question is, having gone from that to now being a consultant in the private sector, and somebody that David Zaslav went to and said, I want you to help me launch this new streaming channel, Discovery Plus. A lot of noise made about that. Did you feel that there was a different approach that you took from the way you did things back then to the way that you did things with them when you launched them?
This doesn't sound very progressive, but no, he came to me. It was a very unique situation that you have 16 really successful channels, and suddenly they have to work together for this one entity, Discovery Plus. And I think I don't know what happened in the beginning, but apparently there was a lot of conflict from different silos and different opinions as to how to go. And suddenly they had a launch date, looking at a launch date. And that's when he called me and said, listen, I need help. And so at that point, a lot of the stuff I used to do, I couldn't do because of the timing. Can't do a lot of teasers a year out when you only have 4 or 5 months to do this thing. So again, I go to event marketing. That's what I've always done. And how do I make it an event that's worth $5.99? And it's something understandable and yet inspirational, and but big. And that was always the goal. That was always everything else, all the technical, all the new tech, all the new media, that all falls into place. You still have to have a singular idea. What is it we're talking about? Otherwise, it gets too complicated.
I was thinking about that when I was, and I hate to dump on our old home, but I'm going to, because Peacock is basically the combination of all of those other networks. So it's CNBC and MSNBC and NBC and NBC News, and it is Bravo and USA and Sci-Fi. It is all of that stuff, but it did not feel like they took the playbook that you took to launch Discovery Plus.
Well, they had bigger names. They had movies. Discovery didn't have any. They had Dr. Pimple Popper. They got a bunch of people wrecking homes, and but people love 90 Day Fiance. I don't get it. It's like it's addictive, bad. television, but people love it. And that's why we went with the line, stream what you love. I'm not sure people knew what we were talking about, but hopefully at the end of each promo, they knew what we were talking about, where you could get all of this at one time. We didn't have Star Trek. We didn't have the big tent poles. So we had to go with volume, 8 million episodes.
But, clearly the idea of reach and frequency was also important, because if you put those promos on every single one of Discovery's channels every single day over and over again, and I think that takes me to you, Sean, because Paramount has, I think, personally, some of the absolute finest television or streaming content out there. And before I get very specific about your strategy of picking a binged version of some program versus a way to go after them weekly and making an appointment. So Back to the Future with appointment television. Tell me a little bit about, clearly you guys are at the top of everybody's news lips right now because of the, all the news that was made on Tuesday when Bob went out and started talking about everything, including the name change. What is the strategy or your strategy or the strategy of streaming at Paramount? Because it looks like that's the end all and be all and the big game for Paramount.
So it's a combination. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us. And thank you, Frank, again. It's a pleasure to be here. And so our strategy is actually to play in what we call free and pay and premium. So it's not just about Paramount Plus, Frank. It's also about Pluto TV and BET Plus and Showtime OTT, right? So we're playing in all three. And at this point, we haven't collapsed anything. And what we're doing is we're moving subscribers from one ecosystem to another. So you may come into Pluto TV, and then we're going to try to silo you to Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus now has live channels, and we'll try to funnel you to Pluto TV. But overall, what you're getting at for Paramount Plus is that our value proposition really is to service the entire family. We're not going niche. We're not going superheroes. We're not going just one form of sports. We have live news, which most other folks don't have. We have live sports. We arguably have the #2 kids content company in the world within our service. So we have SpongeBob. We have Paw Patrol. We have NCIS. We have soccer, we have football, we have live news, as I said, with CBS, we have shows from MTV and Comedy Central and BET. So we're bringing all of that together along with our Paramount Studio film. So it's actually a really, really powerful value proposition. And this year you'll see more originals than ever. For those of you that haven't explored the Taylor Sheridan universe, we brought that over from the Paramount Network to Paramount Plus. But we have films from the creators of South Park that are exclusive to Paramount Plus. We have something really big hitting. We have a series based on the Halo video game heading in March. We have a premium series called The Offer, which is about the making of The Godfather, hitting in April. So this is really a pivotal year for both of our services, and you'll see a continued investment into Pluto TV and Paramount Plus. And so we are kind of treading both worlds.
Isn't Evil on your network?
Yeah, so you'll see all the CBS content also on Paramount Plus, and we have actually moved some shows from CBS exclusively to Paramount Plus.
So I know
it's a great value proposition for the consumer.
Absolutely. Like I said, I found myself being drawn to Paramount Plus more and more every single day, and it's not because of you, but I'm sure that it is because of you, because of your strategy and the way that you're making people funnel in and out of each of those distribution arms. So what was the I'm curious, what was the thought process behind renaming Viacom CBS Paramount? What was that?
So I don't have any insider knowledge. Just to level set, that was kept very close to the vest. I didn't find out about it until like 6 hours before you did. But I think it's very obvious. It's the same reason we named our service Paramount Plus. Paramount is a very well recognized global brand. It stands for quality. It stands for studios and film and history and heritage. The CBS brand is very American and very domestic, right? Showtime also isn't as global as we would like it to be, but I think the Paramount brand is known around the world as one of the probably top 10 preeminent media brands. And so I think they're leaning into that strategy to just name our company Paramount. You know, Viacom CBS isn't doesn't really tell you anything.
I think that the name change really reflects another fundamental shift in the industry, and that is that it is, you know, television was very almost provincial for many decades, and now it's global, it's international. You talk to people, especially after the pandemic, when they really went deep into the Netflix catalog, talking about shows that they saw from France and from Israel. And you know, those walls have really come down in terms of language and what the consumer is willing to try. So actually having a brand name that works in territories around the world probably makes a lot of sense.
And that's right. And the only way to win in the current war is to grow audiences that scale globally. And you have to drive scale economies globally. So yes, we need localized content, and we will invest in those local capabilities and those local demos and those local geographies, but you also need, you know, global IP that's going to work across the world. So Amazon investing, you know, almost $1 billion in the Lord of the Rings franchise and bringing that to you in September. I mean, that's not just going to work here, that's going to work everywhere.
And obviously, just the nature of streaming being global. Yeah, except for those areas where there are geolocated problems, which I actually do run into being here in the UK. But we don't need to talk about that. You know, I wonder, and this goes to you, Sean, and you, Stephen, about the strategy that was such a big deal for a while, and that was binging. And you guys are having some real success, and others as well. Amazon is doing some of that by not binging, by making things appointment viewing. What was the thinking behind that? Was it just financial, or was it marketing? What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, so I'll go first. So, and Frank, I talk about this. I'm also an adjunct professor at the Columbia Business School, and I teach a class called The Business of Television and Streaming. And years ago, I would have told you the iPhone and Netflix kind of changed all of our consumer habits here in the United States. And you know, we as the powerful media brands can change them back. And so, not everything needs to be dropped on one day. You know, and also, yes, Netflix is ahead of us. It has global scale, so they can drop a movie every month and they can drop a series every week. For all of us mere mortals at all the other firms and all the other media companies, we need you to return on a weekly basis. Yes, we need retention and engagement, and we need to reduce churn, and that's for everybody. So it's not just us playing around with the weekly format, Frank. It's Disney Plus is also doing that, HBO Max, Peacock. Everyone else is kind of reverting back to the weekly system, which I think from a consumer perspective also kind of gives you the ability to enjoy a program longer term. And it's also we're at SCAD here, but Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, from a production and a writing and a pre-production and post-production process, it's also just easier on the folks and the creatives making the shows. Instead of having to deliver 10 episodes, I'm making this up, worth $100 million tomorrow, they can deliver them over a 4-month period and kind of evolve and adapt and change things and see what's working and what's not.
Hey, Frank, isn't it, in fact, in the case of a couple of the big streaming shows like Mrs. Maisel, top of my head, I believe, they have now gone back to one drop a week, right? To reinvent water cooler conversation. Remember water coolers in the office? Remember offices? So they're doing it once a week. And didn't Fubo TV, in fact, just not allow you come on and subscribe to them? They insist upon a 3-month minimum, whether you leave them or not after a month. They're trying to get out of this crazy streaming habit of saying, I'll go on for a month, download 12 episodes, and then get out. So
I think that's a really good point.
They're trying to reinvent that weekly drop.
And the streaming wars won't be won just on the continued acquisition of subscribers and who has the most, kind of like a game of show me who has more. in the end, in 2 or 3 years, we're going to reflect back and see who has the highest quality subscribers with the highest ARPU and the lowest churn and the highest engagement and retention. But for now, we're just battling over who has more.
The weekly drop makes sense to me because Frank and Vince, you'll both remember that over time, networks don't. Over time, you stop making money on your big hit shows because the cost of those negatives goes up with success. But you make a lot of money on those shows, say the show that ran after Friends or after Seinfeld, that you were paying that lower fee for. Same thing in the movie business. If you couldn't get a ticket to your first choice, you'd go to the second or third choice in the multiplex. That's sort of gone with streaming and binging, when you could sit there and just watch the thing you want and then get out. So it seems to me that making money on the mid-level and the B titles is something that I kind of feel like that's a challenge that the streamers are going to have to figure out. Otherwise, I think it's going to be very tough to sustain their businesses with the cost of programming, which is going to just continue to go up.
And so a lot of those expensive programs that you're referring to, we think about, those are the real kind of acquisition drivers. Like if we have Halo coming in March, can you imagine what we predict maybe coming into the service? But everything else that we are programming, we are optimizing a programming portfolio for you to be engaged. And those libraries that you see across all the streamers, those matter. It matters who has Friends and who has Seinfeld and who has, NCIS and FBI and South Park, and that's why you see those huge price tags. That's what keeps you there.
No, it was sort of surreal having to write about bidding wars for shows that have been off the air for 10 and 15 years.
Right, right. And what's more fascinating is you won't even believe what's working on FAST and AVOD services. And so for those of you that don't know, Pluto TV and Tubi and Zumo, and when you click on your Samsung TV, there's a TV Plus button. That is an extremely fast-growing industry this year. It's taking off, and shows that don't work on SVOD are working there. So you'll see we have channels that it's SpongeBob 24/7. We have I Love Lucy working there, and JAG, and shows that the students here watching this have never even heard of, and now will be exposed to via those services.
It's fascinating how interested Gen Z is in the nostalgia of some of those bingeable series. Even Friends and The Office it's insane to see them look back at it and consider it nostalgia for some of the generations who grew up with it. But then as it gets rebooted or redone, as in the case with Gossip Girl right now, thinking about how to bring those audiences together it's interesting. And the evolution of the fandom as it relates to streaming.
Right. Well, Melissa, you mentioned Seinfeld and The Office. I forget the exact numbers, but at one point, Netflix released some stats. They were getting like ridiculous 30% of their subs and audiences and minutes viewed. Who looks at minutes viewed? Minutes viewed were from those two shows. Obviously, I think Seinfeld was on Hulu for a while, and they paid some ungodly sum to get it back on Netflix. Clearly, as Sean has mentioned, the program helps drive the subs and drives the viewership. Ask your friends at HBO Max, but Harry Potter is the gift that keeps on giving, and even The Sopranos, I heard, is a top-ranking series on their service. So these libraries matter a lot.
But on the other end of the token, too, returning to the eventization of TV through streaming has been wildly successful. I think Yellow Jackets in particular was a really great standout example of that, of the momentum and again, building that fandom from the core outward, and not kind of just going straight for mass, but building the tension and like the deep dives on the Reddit threads around that program alone, where people were just theorizing around what's going on, how is it working out. That was so exciting, and it's created so much, again, more momentum as we look forward to the next edition of it, knowing that, there's going to be 5 in total.
Frank, you muted.
Muted, Frank.
Okay, talk amongst yourselves.
Okay.
While Frank's getting his voice back, I like something Steve
What do you
opened up
think?
with.
What do you
Steve,
think
you
he's
said
saying?
earlier, your comment,
What?
generational transformation. What a great phrase. That's what each of us are talking about here, because we are shifting. What we grew up with. I've got a bunch of kids and grandchildren. Yes, the younger ones are watching on their iPads, or watching on their phones, and they're watching a lot of the same things we used to. They don't adhere to the TV anymore. So I sense the viewing pie continues to grow, but the number of slices of that pie are getting smaller and smaller. So I love Sean's comments. The individual pieces have to be monetized separately. Here at Sinclair, we're maybe the smaller version of what is now Paramount, but we're expanding on both news and sports because we're producing news in 90 different markets. And not only are those sold individually and across the spot marketplace, but here at the network group, we aggregate that. So we're tapping into both those pools. In order to do that, we're just trying to monetize the discrete pieces. Obviously, the RSNs that we acquired from Fox Disney years ago are now being monetized separately. That's for futures. But we're doing what Sean is doing. We've got to aggregate all those pieces so that we're making money both on the subscriber side as well as on the audience side. Frank, you got your voice back?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great
Okay,
coverage,
good.
Jon.
So, I thank you. Jon, let's talk a little bit about Sinclair, which is clearly one of the largest stations groups in America. And in the early days when you started there, after you had left your job at NBC and went to Sinclair, we talked about how you were going to sell the station group the way you would sell a network, and clearly that's worked for you guys. You have a definite position in the marketplace. How's that going for you?
Thank you for the shameless plug. You read it exactly as I wrote it. So the fact is, I've been here, 9 years now. A dozen years ago, the people running Sinclair, most of them still here, recognized that the robust percent increases that the TV stations had been enjoying for years were still strong, just not as strong as they used to be. They wanted to tap into alternate pools. We had at the time, 9 years ago, 177 stations in 77 markets. They realized that was big enough to sell as a network footprint. So we created what became rebranded as Sinclair Media Networks. It is our network footprint. You come in and buy the entire, as of right now, 185 stations in 86 markets. You buy that as a network footprint, and we aggregate that with partnerships in the non-Sinclair, the dozen or so non-Sinclair markets that we don't cover. So we sell that as a network footprint. It's been very successful because if you think about, say, the early morning, you buy Good Morning America on the ABC stations, the Today Show on the NBC stations, we sell all of those on our aggregated 31 ABC stations, 25 CBS stations, 44 Fox stations, and so on and so on. We are a diversified portfolio of broadcast assets, so we can monetize that out of the network pool.
Are you playing in the streaming pool?
We are. Separate division. Again, the company thinks very, very much outside the box. We have a whole digital unit. We've launched a streaming service called Stir, another news-based one called News On. And as you guys all probably know, we will be launching all of the D2C components for associated with the regional sports networks. So absolutely, there's an entire digital unit that sells a platform of digital products.
I was actually, I don't want to forget to mention this because we're talking so much about streaming that it's no longer considered new media, but there was a lot of talk about the downfall of broadcast television, and I think that the numbers of the recent Super Bowl maybe belie that. But that's neither here nor there, and it's just something I wanted to throw out there. But I want to talk to Melissa about social media and how social media is being leveraged in the demo that utilizes social media the most to draw the audience into these kinds of programs that you mentioned, and that certainly that Sean is putting out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, where to begin? I think the first thing is really thinking about social media as it relates to streaming programming. It's part of the narrative in and of itself. It's about creating a meta experience, or again, sometimes a metaverse, even if you're creating social media accounts specifically for some of the characters. And then it's really thinking about, like anything, the consumer experience as it relates to that program, right? So if something is dropped over a period of time, the eventization of each episode and driving conversation, relevant conversation that's tied to things that are happening in the world. And then I think that the other element is really exciting and interesting right now as it relates to a meta experience is also working more closely with talent and their in real life fandoms that they bring to the table as well, right? So if you have a new show that's coming out and you're starting from scratch and you have 0 followers across the board, if you're going to start building that target audience where it's the core of the super fans, and then the next level is the converts, and then the next level are the aspirational fans, what better place to start than looking directly at the talent who bring their own core super fandom to the table? I think that again, it's a really interesting and exciting and experimental time for social as it relates to TV, because again, it no longer are we in the world where it's sufficient to just do, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, like Hootsuite, great. Like, yeah, duh, of course you're going to do that. But where it's really fun is how you can get super experimental now. Like, I'm more interested in doing stuff with emergent platforms, like doing stuff on Discord. If you haven't checked that platform out and going to see the conversation that's happening there, check it out. Or things that are unexpected, Spotify, again, I mentioned Yellow Jackets, but the Spotify, channel that they drove for that was nostalgia in and of itself. And, I think the most important thing that I love about Gen Z is that they identify and they're found in sort of these small pockets of the internet. So I think that, the more that you can think about that strategically as you think about sort of like your macro strategy and then drilling into the fandom where you can extract them and bring them into the fold is where it gets really fun.
So the idea, and this could be for anybody on the panel, the idea of driving to an 18 to 49 demo, which was the key demo in the past, that doesn't matter anymore. Yes? No?
Unfortunately, Madison Avenue is so... Go ahead, Steve.
No, well, they're trying to de-emphasize it because it's the decline in that of people using television, the 18 to 49 demographic of linear television, live plus same day. It's down 45% in the last 5 years, and if you go out even further, the decline's even steeper than that. So I think a lot of places are selling, 25 to 54, more just 25 plus. And, a network executive once joked to me that, one of the pharmaceutical companies should just buy one of these networks because they're the ones who are buying all the time.
Steve, you're absolutely right. Where a lot of our business is driven by pharma and travel and insurance and CPG. But you know what? 35 plus these days, even 50 plus is frankly the demographic with most of the spendable income. The world has shifted. It is a reality. 35 plus, 50 plus is a powerful group with a lot of cash in their pockets. And whether you're selling cars or any sort of a video game or vacation travel, you want to hit the people who can actually spend the money to buy the products.
Yeah, but right? I still subscribe to the notion that you have to reach those young viewers to develop brand habits and develop the aspiration for those products that you want to buy once you are older and have money. It's that
now you sound like
built up
one of
over
our
time.
Clients. Yeah. Now you sound like one of our clients, Stephen. That's exactly why the 18 to 49 still matters.
Yeah. So, right. Sean, you mentioned the sort of not the disparity, but the differences between the ways that you approach the distribution. So it's AVOD, it's SVOD, it's FAST, it's all of those things. The question I was going to ask, which would have gone to Jon, but it probably can go to both of you guys, is how do you sell now? Who do you sell to? And is it mitigated by the different types of distribution platforms? Sean, you can go first.
Yeah. So So I mean, not just us. I think it's probably the same at Comcast. So anybody with an ad tier is now aggregating all of the what we would call streaming impressions that exist across the ecosystem. So not just Peacock, but probably the NBC Sports app and the NBC News app, which are still relevant. So for Paramount Plus, it has an ad tier, and it could be with Pluto and with any of the CBS News apps. They're aggregating all of those, and they're selling those at various different tiers to ad buyers and clients. But it's created a tremendous growth opportunity for all of the ad sales teams across our industry.
I can double down on that, Frank. What we're doing here at Sinclair is that each of the 180 some odd stations have their local sales group and the national spot sales groups out of their offices. They're bundling up our traditional linear with digital. In fact, there are some markets that are overachieving their digital far beyond what linear is doing, because linear is going to be tied to the TV ratings. But we do partnerships with a variety of different digital platforms so that we can have somebody goes out. The expectation for most clients these days, whether it's a car dealer, an insurance company, or a doctor's office, they want to be hitting people from all sides, from both the linear side and the digital side. So digital tends to be younger.
And so
I imagine,
Frank,
John,
what John's getting at is eventually, I mean, everyone in television is pushing for 1-to-1. Like one impression on cable or broadcast should be equal to a streaming or digital impression. There should be no kind of tiering system anymore.
Yeah, an impression is an impression is an impression. But definitely the industry is going that way.
I think that's where you're going to find out when the Olympics are over. NBC, they have teamed up with iSpot TV to try to measure the impression of one commercial throughout all of the different Olympic platforms. Yeah, the linear ratings are down. There's no doubt about it. But, if you are a big fan of a specific sport, you can immerse yourself in it on one of these other Olympic streaming platforms, and you're seeing commercials. So they are monetizing that. And it certainly is the way to reach the younger viewer.
So what about ATSC 3.0? Is that something you guys at Sinclair are playing in? Because it seems to me that we're talking about something that takes on air and turns it into something more like online.
Yeah. So rebrand 2022, Next Gen TV. It's no longer ATSC 3. That was the basis of it. It has been rebranded as Next Gen, and we're at the forefront of it. And I'm happy to say the other TV station groups are mostly joining the consortium. This will give us, maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next week, but in the future, give us the ability to do the same thing that the digital guys could do. Give us the ability to target on a more geographic basis. All the things you could do when you sell a digital platform, you'll be able to do with Next Gen TV. Just it's got to basically rebuild the entire infrastructure from ATSC 1, which is what we're on now. So massive investment has to be made. That's being made though as we speak.
So Vince, you were shaking your head in agreement. What were you thinking?
Oh, I was thinking whether or not I was going to get another cup of coffee at this point. But
they don't like the digital stuff.
I'm shaking in agreement. When I listen to everyone who are experts here, I've never felt more like a dinosaur in my life. I read every day from crypto to new technology, and I'm just an idea guy. That's what I do. I think you still need, to entice people at the end of wherever the hell you are, whatever medium. You got someone at the end of that has to say that looks great. I think I'll do that for $5.99 or whatever.
So one of the
Netflix doesn't worry about any of this. They just worry about churn, and they up their price another $2. So they're not that concerned about, other than losing viewers, about 18 to 49. So all I'm just saying is it's changing every 2 minutes. Every 2 minutes, something is changing.
one of the students, or a couple of the students that are writing in the chat, are talking about whether, you know, because they're writers and they're producers and they're directors and they're camera people and they're actors, as well as. By the way, I do want to say that SCAD has just begun a new business school for media, and I hope that some of those students are listening in on this and will then catch us later on, because I think it's appropriate for them, and I you know, kudos to them for doing that. But the point that a lot of people are asking is there a difference? Are things being made differently? Are those crafts, or those businesses, those things that those people do, those skills, are they still as important? And I think I know the answer to that, but I want to hear what you had to say about that, Vince.
I think there's more opportunity for producers, writers to get their work done and seen. You know, you don't used to be just a traditional development. You got to get into like 3 or 4 different people. That's all there were. Now there's all kinds of different ways to get your product. I use as an example the recent Bel Air was based on a YouTube trailer that a guy did, basically taking Fresh Prince to the next level. Will Smith saw it, called the guy in, and I'm just saying that's not normal, but this guy took it in his own hands. There are ways to get it out there. You know,
like, every single person watching should be posting on social media. If you create content in any way, shape, or form, you're a producer, you're a shooter, everything, go on TikTok, double down on it. YouTube Shorts, massive opportunities to be discovered there right now. I mean, if there's anything that I can share for everyone, it's like, if you're creative, document it and put it out in the world, and don't wait for one of these companies to find you, right? Like, put it out there, and the opportunities will open up for you that way.
Yes, but I will extend on that, Melissa, is that I think, so for all the students that are listening, 2 things. One is, this is the second golden age of television, as you've heard probably before. The first golden age was when your grandparents were watching I Love Lucy and the Genie. And so there's more television being, is that not right, Vince? Is that right?
You're missing from.
Sorry.
Yeah, you got to add that. This would be the third golden age, I think, if you talk to Vince.
Third golden age of television. So there's more content and investment being made than ever before. There's more opportunities for all of you from a creative perspective than there have been in the past 10 years. So yes, social media, Melissa, for sure. But then when you get that call, please have that sample script ready. Please have that sample outline ready. Don't tell us now you need another 3 weeks. At least have the basics in place. Yes, the content on social media is important, but have your reels ready and your other, really legitimate type of work ready to go. And so you can hit the ground running, but there are more opportunities than ever before for all of you.
Melissa, you can turn that into a TikTok and post it.
I might. I'm actually filming myself right now, and I'm going to create a TikTok out of this. I am. This is how meta.
Well, of course you are. You should. So it is called show business for a reason, because it is a business. And how much do these kids, these students, how much do they need to be considering the business that they're getting into versus just the creative? Do they need to be worried about that? I remember at one point when I was just becoming an executive and I was worried about a budget, and I think it might have been you, Vince, who said, "Don't worry about that. That's my care about that. You need to just go do your thing." I don't think that's the way it is anymore.
I think for everyone out there, when you're pitching and you're having conversations, you should really understand what our goals and objectives are on the other side. You may be pitching us a zombie show, but we may not be in the zombie show business. So don't sit here and bang my head against your idea, trying to convince me that it's going to work. There are hundreds of experts on our side that have carefully surveyed the data and developed a very specific content strategy or content plan for 2022 and 23 and 24. And so when you come to us, I think having an understanding of our demo and our strategy and our priorities, you should then, you probably have multiple ideas that you want to pitch, and then you should kind of tailor your pitch to what our business objectives are. Unless you're a well-known creator, Frank, it's hard for you to get into the door. If you're a well-known creator with a proven hit, then bring the zombie show forward, right? But if you're Sean Gupta, who's never had a show picked up, bring some of the ideas that are relevant to those services. And again, there's so much money being invested in streaming, Frank. Everyone should not just be pitching a linear idea. You should be pitching what the streaming vision of that would be.
So there's a difference?
There could be. It could be more cinematic. It could be premium. It could be commercial free, bingeable, non-bingeable. There's some types of formats that work on cable that don't work in streaming.
So, Stephen, I was going to come to you and say, you started this thing by looking back and using that as an example. I want you to look forward, but and from your perspective and the people that you talk to, because I know you talk to just about everybody all the time in order to break the stories that you break and report the stories that you report. Are you seeing anything down the road that we aren't talking about?
In terms of I think the one thing you want to think about is who will survive in all this. I mean, right now, I think the data says that people will subscribe to up to 3.5 services. The number's like 3.5 or something like that. There's not going to be room at the inn for everybody. And so I kind of think that 5 years from now, that the alignment will be a lot different and I think that streaming may end up looking a lot like the cable bundle.
I was just going to say, when is someone going to bundle it?
Yeah, and
it's happening.
Right, when Time Warner and Discovery get together, and they'll have their menu of services, which will include CNN and the nonfiction, the TLC programming, and HBO Max. All I think that I think you're going to have these new sort of malls that will have different that will have a lot of different stores in them, and it's kind of going to look like the bundle, I think.
Yeah, I sure hope so, because I'm paying a whole lot more for all my bundles now than I used to.
Oh my God. Don't get me started on what I'm spending. Just YouTube TV alone. But I'll tell you, it seems to me that that it's in the past you could market your brand. So NBC was the brand, or CBS was the brand, ABC was the brand. I don't think anybody cares about that anymore. What they care about is their stars, their shows, their content. Consequently, I'm going to go back to what I was saying earlier. I think that the idea of how you navigate to discover this content is going to be the key, and it won't matter who's putting it out there. You'll get automatically charged on your credit card. It could almost be an a la carte situation. So there's this bundle, but the bundle exists in the background. It's sort of like the way that Microsoft started with DOS in the background, and it started to look like Windows. It seems to me that is something that's a secret that hasn't been broken yet.
I'd like to get Melissa's take on how she thinks consumers are going to respond to streaming news channels. You have CBS obviously has one with CBS News streaming, and you're about to see the launch of CNN Plus. Fox News is in the business with Fox Nation. Obviously, this is a way to, I think, is a placeholder for down the road when the bundle eventually goes away and these outlets want to reach consumers. But people are younger viewers, and you worked on the digital side at NBC News and CNN. Are younger viewers going to respond to these channels? Are they going to watch news in the same way on a stream, the way their parents watched it on television?
It's a great question. I think a lot of people are curious to see what actually happens. But I will say that from what I see in terms of Gen Z behavior online as it relates to viewing television, it's not going to be the same. It's never going to be the same as it was. I think the way in is niching down. I think that if a program is really specific and it really does appeal to a very specific sub-target, it's much more attractive to a Gen Z viewer and will break them of their regular habits in order to tune in and check it out. And I think it also plays to what Frank is talking about, this idea that the fragmentation of consumption, I think, is also going to happen as well, where it's like you can see a tweet come up and it's a very specific piece of programming and you can click through to watch that immediately, no matter where it is or what's going on with it. I think that that is much more of a likelihood than bringing in younger viewers from a big brand name in order to sample everything. I don't think CNN Plus is going to be attractive. I think it's much more about what are the programs that are on there, why do I care, and how does it connect to the things that I care about. And that sort of behavior, even to extend what Frank is saying too, like I think that that's going to extend to shopping as well. I think you're already seeing it on Instagram. You're seeing it, through product placement in that way, where it's just one click through to get something. And it's like, are you even going to really know or care where it comes from? I don't know.
You make a, go ahead.
I was going to say, how is everyone on this panel? How do you get your news? I don't watch news unless there's something happening. But I'm like Twitter. I get notices every
Twitter
day.
Is still so important. You talk to anybody, it's still
it's a whole bunch of different sources. I don't know. I think it's an uphill climb there for news on, it's an older audience who are more resident to go online for this, not knowing exactly what it is. So I don't know. I think it's an uphill climb.
But
well, you make a good
a reflection and a microcosm of what we're talking about right here. It's a mix. It's a portfolio. It's several different sources. I see what my kids do. They watch news, but they're going to watch it on their phones and watch it on their Twitter feed. Watch it on TikTok.
Yeah.
If there's something
big, If there's something big, I'll go to news. But otherwise. I think it's hard. It's going to be hard.
I think that what Melissa, you said, I think there's a key to news consumption. And to me, the key to news consumption is notifications. It is, I think, the single most important thing for news consumption right now, regardless of where the story comes from. So did you get that from NBC, or did you get it from The Wrap, or did you get it from Variety, or where did it come from? It popped up as a notification on my phone or on my computer, which then made me go and discover it somewhere else. So right now it seems, and it could be Twitter, because Twitter sends out constant notifications. Facebook sends out constant notifications. Even TikTok sends out constant notifications. My notifications are just driving me nuts. I can't even go to sleep at night because my phone is going beep, beep, beep all night long.
Let's not forget the LA Times, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, but I listen. Every time Stephen writes a story, I have an automatic notification from the LA Times with Stephen's byline on it, because I've chosen to go in and do that. I follow everything that Stephen writes because I made the choice to opt in on those notifications. That to me is really critical. And let me talk a little bit about CNN for a moment, not the problems that they're having right now, but CNN Plus. CNN
What? Are they having problems?
You think? CNN Plus, and I've been watching this very closely, still has an awful lot of reuse of their current stars. No matter how they're using them, they're putting them in to do talk shows. There's a handful of shows that seem interesting to me that I might want to check out. I'd be curious to see the cooking show that they've got going. I do think that the wine show that they have is pretty cool, but that's already on CNN anyway.
And Frank, Brian Stelter is going to have a show on this.
I saw that today. I saw at a daily show. It makes me wonder the opportunity in the stream for the news business to do something different and to get this audience that they're trying to get that they can't get right now because they're all in the pharma era. They're all in the I'm going to take a boat down a river era. Those are the people who are watching news on television. They need the new audience, so they need to do something different. I don't see utilizing current stars on their stream as a strategy that will work.
You know,
Melissa,
yeah.
I'm really curious about it myself. I think, as I was saying before, I think part of the strategy from what I'm seeing is that they're taking the stars and putting them into more niche categories, right? So you've got Jake Tapper, who is a news personality, is then going to be doing a book-focused show, which showcases sort of his author side of him. And that helps him build equity, within that audience, and then grow it from there. And it's more focused, right? It's an extension, longer form opportunity from his on-air show. So I think that that's interesting. But I mean, do I think that Gen Z is going to go out of their way to tune into him for that? I don't know. I mean, I'm actually really curious about the Allison Roman cooking show. I think that is really interesting and different. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, it looks like from the outside, it's a lot of throwing paint at the wall. And I think that they're going to run it and see what happens and then continue to refine from there.
CBS SN, I thought started out with an interesting proposition that I believe ABC is now following, but I don't know that that's the end all and be all of how it works. It's a conflagration of all of their local stations that you can pick a local station to go to and watch that content from that local station. I like it, but I don't see it. I'm not in the demo. I don't see it as the answer to streaming news media. Steven,
what? It certainly is younger. I believe the median age on it is about 40 compared to 60 plus for their televised programming. So I mean, there is something there in terms of that it does reach the intended demographic better than traditional TV. And the thing about TV news is that it has sort of become companionship television. It's, the audience is old. A lot of them are watching it alone. It's live people talking about what's happening now. I mean, it makes them feel connected to the world. And that's not necessarily about being informed. It's about company, really.
So Frank, for those students that are listening and for Gen Z that don't have cable or broadcast, you are correct in your assessment of the fast streaming news channels, CBS News and others, but we're only in version 1 of those channels, right? This is the year that I was saying you're going to see pivotal kind of changes and growth in FAST and AVOD. And I'm not going to talk about internal, players, but NBC News, ABC, and others are all launching FAST channels this year. And you're going to see them evolve, Frank. Right now, it may just be pieces of content from various different affiliates and different news channels. But imagine if the big, well-known news brands, which are the most credible in the space, actually invested in kind of developing a very fast-specific news channel that was geared towards a younger audience. And I think that's where we're going to go. Cheddar is great, but it's not. Just now imagine if we could meet in the middle and CBS News and NBC News and ABC News created a Cheddar-like product that was real, reliable news, but moved much faster and was only on fast streaming services for free.
It's funny that you say that. I mean, there were a couple that I thought had opportunities, whether it was Vox or Axios or some of those interesting new ways of going out and doing things, but they didn't quite catch on. We only have a couple of minutes left, and I want to go around the horn and ask everybody for like 30 seconds of where are we going from here? Jon Spaet, Dr. Jon.
Dr. Radice. So where we're going from here, we need more of this, Frank, what you're doing. Being excluded, but smart people getting together, discussing how can we, while the industry is being consolidated, how do we move forward? Things like what Linda's doing over at NBC, what Dave Morgan is doing with Simul. Let's get all these people together, the VAB, the IAB. let's take all these ideas and aggregate it in forums like this, so that we can standardize our measurements and get the industry acting as a whole, because we're a little disparate now. I think we need that moving forward.
Yeah, that was another area I wanted to talk about, which was analytics, but we don't have time for that. Melissa, what do you got?
Geez. I mean, I think, it's an incredibly exciting time. I think that for those who are running streaming and thinking about programming and creating content, include social and digital as part of that. Don't even think of it as separate. I think it's all one. It is really, I mean, again, this idea of the metaverse that keeps kind of, touching upon everything. It's an expanded experience. And I think, even with Sean talking about, Halo, I'm like, oh my God, can you just imagine the social media strategy for that? And like what you would do to gamify that on the, the video game itself, and how do you sort of ingratiate that? It's so exciting. So I would just say, don't think about it as just a community that's outside, that's external, talking about it, not just dialoguing with them, but it's all inclusive. It's an entire meta experience.
Sean, you got you're done, John. Sean.
And your question, Frank, was what do I see next? What?
Yeah. Or one last thought.
Just I think to the students here and to SCAD, it's such an exciting year to be in this industry. There's tons of opportunity. I think you should all be really excited about your passions and pursuing those passions. I think there's tons of opportunities in Atlanta, New York, LA, globally. Anything is possible. And that's it, Frank.
Yeah, and of course, SCAD has a campus in the south of France, so we all want to go there. Vince, what do you got?
Yes.
Me? I just think we did not cover two 800-pound gorillas in the competitors, gaming and podcasts. And of course, somebody one day explained this metaverse thing to me, wearing the snorkel thing and buying a Bitcoin. I don't know. I'm just confused.
Well,
so
we'll send you an NFT that explains it. And finally, Stephen, last words from you.
No, the consumer rules right now. I mean, they have so much. They have choice that my generation couldn't imagine growing up with television.
Yeah.
And they're mixing and matching. They can put together a pretty good bundle right now between if they bother to use an over-the-air antenna, which is something I don't understand why the industry doesn't embrace more. Well, I do know why. It's because they don't want to endanger the sub fees. But over-the-air television, especially with next gen, has real value and can be an important part of that mix. But consumers are doing that now. They're picking they know the things that they like. They can be very specific, hone in on those, and put together a package of things that satisfies their viewing. And that's a moving target for all the companies. Very challenging.
Yeah.
And that's why marketing why marketing is important.
Oh, clearly. Absolutely.
Marketing all of that.
So let me thank Jon Spaet, Stephen Battaglio, Sean Gupta, Melissa Blum, and Vince Manze for joining us here today. Thank you, SCAD, for having us and allowing us to do this, and hope to see you at one of the campuses. I personally would say let's all meet in the south of France, or maybe at the Hong Kong campus, something a little different. But thanks a lot, people. I really enjoyed this.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Frank.